Professions always play a huge part in any World of Warcraft expansion, and the War Within is no different. There are a lot of new changes to the system, and tons of potential ways for you guys to make yourselves rich. So in this video, I wanted to go over each profession, what's new with them, and try to help you guys make a decision on which profession is the right one for you. So let's kick this off with engineering. Now, engineering has two really big potential moneymakers, the first one being a new mount you guys can craft. Now, historically, engineering mounts have always been a really big moneymaker, and I think this is going to be just another one of those cases where it's going to be really valuable because I think this new mount looks really sick. And also, if you guys are one of the lucky ones to get the plans for this engineering mount early off, you are going to make a killing on this. The other really big potential for money here is going to be this brand new thing coming to the game called potion bombs. Now, potion bombs are this new kind of thing that they're adding to the game where essentially they act like combat potions. They're going to be sharing the same cooldown as that, but with these you basically throw them at the enemy and they kind of explode, do a little bit of damage, and then they buff your group. Now, the three potion bombs we've seen so far are going to be one that buffs your primary stat, another one that increases your healing received, and then also another one just gives you a flat movement speed. And these bombs, or potion bombs, basically splash and hit up to 5 allies. So these are going to be perfect for Mythic Plus. I really don't know how they're going to work out in the raid environment. I imagine you'll have to throw multiple potion bombs to affect the whole raid, but we'll just have to wait and see how that works. But either way, I think potion bombs are going to be a huge moneymaker regardless of the timing and just throughout the entire expansion. We've also got a ton of profession equipment that engineers can craft for various crafters of, different professions. So that's always going to be a really good way to make some money. And then also, you've got all the different types of gadgets that engineers are known for. The only two big downsides to engineering that I can think of is, firstly, the limited tinker options. I feel like they should have added more to the game, but I think with just how much stuff they added to engineering in general, adding more tinker options was just going to be basically overkill and made the profession just super good for a ton of people. So that's why we're not seeing a lot. I hope they add some more. And then also the biggest factor here is that I think engineering is going to be super complex and it's going to require a significant time investment and understanding of the various components if you guys want to do a bunch of stuff with this profession. Next up, we've got Jewelcrafting. Now, those of you that were around for Dragonflight know that Jewelcrafting was probably the biggest moneymaker out of all the professions. People were crafting the rings and the neck piece, and it was just insanely good ways to make money, so they definitely kind of reined that in a little bit, but I still think there's going to be a ton of potential here with this profession. Obviously, the new socket items, the ability to add sockets to multiple jewelry pieces is always going to be super awesome. And then also, I think we're going to see a resurgence to just everyone wanting to get these crafted rings. I think the crafted rings in general are going to be in really high demand. And I think Blizzard's probably going to have to end up nerfing them because, I think they're just going to be really strong. And plus, at the end of the day, when it comes to just a really good, solid profession to have, Jewelcrafting is just always a really safe option because, gems and prismatic gems are just always going to be in high demand, and people are always going to need those throughout the expansion. So if you just want a steady workhorse of a moneymaker, Jewelcrafting is probably a really good one for you guys to pick up. The only downsides I can really think of for Jewelcrafting is the fact that a lot of the things you need to craft are going to require these kind of rare drop rates for the more valuable items. So you're going to have to do a little bit of searching and farming and just a little bit of RNG to get those really cool things. And then also, this is one of those professions that is going to lean heavy on the crafting system. So if you guys are someone that doesn't really like to do that, this is probably not a profession for you. The next profession we're going to be talking about is going to be Enchanting. Now, Enchanting is one of those really good moneymaker professions out there, but in my opinion, it's one of the more harder ones to get into. There are a ton of new enchants to go for this time around. It looks like we've got a bunch of new weapon enchants, so those are always good. So I think there's going to be a ton of just high in demand kind of enchants for you guys to chase after, so that's really cool. We've also got some new kind of like glamour items that are going to change the appearance of things. So some people enjoy those, they look really cool. They're basically like these kind of like shoulder enchants, at least the ones that I saw. We've also got the enchanted crests, which are going to be ways for people to upgrade the higher item level crafted gear, so that's always going to be something that will be needed. But again, because of the potential ways to make money, enchanting is going to be a really hard profession to do because of just how much competition there's going to be to deal with that, especially with how the auction houses are now region wide. So that is something to consider. And then again, just like engineering, I think enchanting is probably one of the most investment required professions out there. You're going to have to put a bunch of money into this if you guys want to actually be one of the more experienced and more profitable enchanters on your server. But again, don't let me dissuade you guys. If this is something you want to do and you guys have the time investment for it, you can make a ton of money with enchanting. Now let's talk about tailoring. Tailoring has a couple of really good ways to make some money, and the first one that I want to talk about is obviously the bags. Now, general bag slots are always going to be really good ways to make money, but the other one is going to be now we have some really good profession-specific bags with useful buffs. So these are going to be in high demand and definitely a really good way for tailorers to make some money. We've also got some crafted PvP gear that tailorers will be able to make, so that's going to be, again, another really good way to make some money on the auction house. And we've also got a daily cooldown to create some bolts, so that's another way to make some good money based on just some cooldown based crafting. Some cons in regards to tailoring is going to be that the real money makers here are going to be all about the crafting orders. So again, if you guys don't want to deal with the crafting order system, this is probably not a profession for you guys. And also, if you really want to make a bunch of money with tailoring and abuse the whole cooldown based crafting stuff like the bolts, you're going to want to have an army of ults that are all kind of crafting bolts on daily cooldown. So again, if you don't want to deal with ult management, probably not a really good profession. Next up, we've got Alchemy. So Alchemy is going to be a really safe pick for people that, if they don't know what profession to pick, just pick up Alchemy because you're always going to really have a nice kind of increase to the duration of your flasks, so that's always great. But also, making consumables like the potions or combat potions is always a really good way to make some money. However, Alchemy is not higher up on this list just because of the introduction of those potion bombs for engineering. We just don't know what the effects those potion bombs are going to have on the community and the marketplace. If they end up being way better than combat potions, then people might just not use those altogether. So we really don't know. So that's one thing to keep in mind about Alchemy. Some other really nice things about Alchemy is the fact that you'll have the transmutations, which are basically going to be essential for those new epic gems, which again are going to be highly profitable. Also, we've got some PvP specific flasks with some unique effects for PvP, so those seem to be some possible, high demand items. But again, just like enchanting, I feel like alchemy is going to be one of those professions that are just going to be having tons of competition. And then also the prices of flasks and just consumables in general typically drop pretty bad after the start of an expansion, so you're definitely going to want to be making a bunch more stuff at the start of the expansion versus later, because the amount of money that you're going to make out of that is going to drop a lot. Next up, we're going to be talking about blacksmithing, and this one is pretty straightforward. The pros of blacksmithing is, being able to craft some really good plate gear and weapons. You'll also be able to make some good money off of the profession equipment that blacksmiths can make. And then we also have this new thing called the Ever-Burning Forge buffs, which is going to be a unique spec tree for crafting buffs. But I think with blacksmithing, the big moneymaker potential here is definitely going to be on the weapons. Some pros of blacksmithing is this one is another profession that is going to highly be reliant on crafting orders. And then again, this is going to be another one of those professions that's going to require a lot of time investment if you really want to make money crafting those really good weapons. When it comes to leatherworking, there's some good ways to make some money here. A really nice thing about this profession in general is the fact that you can craft both leather and mail gear, so there's going to be a lot bigger of a market there, so good potential ways to make some money. You'll also be able to make some PvP gear, so that's really good. And then again, this is another profession that is going to have some profession equipment that you can craft. Again, this is another one of those professions that requires a lot of crafting orders investment. And the really big downside here is that I really wish they would have added some weapon crafting to leatherworking, but alas, we don't have that. In my opinion, Inscription kind of sucks. There's still going to be some ways to make money with it, but I think this is just one of those professions that, unless you're really into this one, it's not a really good one to invest in my opinion. The Dark Moon cards have always been a really good way to make money at the start of expansions, but they just fall off after that, and they're just terrible at that point. And unfortunately, they've changed the way that the Darkmoon cards work now. You don't actually craft them. Now it's more like you just spend points into that spec tree to increase the drop rate of finding these cards. So that's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Now, you will have the profession treaties, which is something that's always in high demand for any profession. That's going to be allowing you to craft ways to, give people skill points for their professions, so that's pretty good. And then, of course, missives are always going to be needed for those stat-specific crafting things. But overall, I think Inscription is a really weird profession to deal with because, in my opinion, it's kind of weird, right? You've got a lot of competition due to the region-wide auction house, but then at the same time, the profession itself is not really versatile, so there's not a lot of in-demand items here, or at least just a few. But yeah, I just don't think Inscription is a really good way to make money if you just want to make millions of gold. Next up, I wanted to talk about the gathering professions, i.e. mining, herbalism, skinning, that kind of thing. I wanted to put these all together just because, in my opinion, if you're looking for a gathering profession to make you a ton of money, you can, but it's kind of a time-sensitive thing, right? You'll make a ton of money at the start of an expansion with gathering professions, but as the expansion goes on, your potential for money is going to drop a lot. And this is mainly because, people aren't there's not going to be a huge spike in a massive demand for reagents and materials, at least not after the start, because that's when people are trying to level up their professions. They're trying to get gear to get ready for the raids, all that kind of stuff. And then also you've got outside factors like bots, farming with materials, things like that. So again, if you're just looking for ways to make a bunch of money quick, gathering professions are really not a good way to do that, unless you're someone that enjoys gathering the materials to craft the items. Then by all means, definitely, pair those up with their respective professions. Go with jewelcrafting with mining, blacksmithing with mining, skinning with leatherworking, tailoring, enchanting, that kind of thing. And that kind of goes along with cooking and fishing too. There's really not going to be a ton of good ways to make money with these professions, unless you're someone that just loves to just farm constantly and you're spending most of your time doing that kind of thing. Then yeah, there's definitely ways to make money doing that. But again, when it comes to gathering professions, these are just, if you're someone that enjoys doing it, by all means, pick it up and do that. But in my opinion, the big money makers are definitely going to be the crafting professions. So now that you guys have a general idea of what each profession is like, the potential ways to make money with them, things like that, now why don't you guys do me a huge favor, and if you haven't already, why don't you subscribe to my channel? That way you guys can always see more content like this in the future. Right now, I'm making a ton of content for World of Warcraft just because the new expansion is right around the horizon, but I'm also making content on other RPG games in general, so definitely something for you guys to take a look at when you're, not busy playing WoW. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm still Solo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.